Hello, I would like to just say a few words on the royal family, on monarchy in the UK as it stands in 2017. This seems like an appropriate time to discuss this because there's just been news from the palace that Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, is officially standing down from royal engagements, from official royal engagements, um, at the age of 95. Most people retire from work in their mid 60s, so to still be traveling the country, to still be getting involved in formal events at his age is quite something. Obviously, this is probably for precautionary reasons. He is a bit more frail than he used to be. There was some criticism at the time of the Jubilee that the royal couple were kind of left out on the boat during quite unpleasant conditions. There was a regatta on the Thames, and they had to kind of stay out in the boat waving at people, and there was some criticism of that. But yeah, um, I just want to talk in general terms, not so much about Prince Philip, but in general terms about the royal family. There has been a lot of significant landmarks in recent years. There was the Queen's Jubilee in her Diamond Jubilee in 2012. There was her 90th birthday last year. And also last year, she became the world's longest serving head of state with the death of King Bhumibol of Thailand, who had been the previous holder of that. Um, the UK obviously is a parliamentary democracy, which means that we are a system that is based on parliamentary procedure, that is based on having a monarch as head of state. There's only a few other countries in the world. Most countries in the world today are republic of varying degrees. Some are democracies, some are totalitarian, but most countries are de facto republics. As I understand, there's only 35 monarchies left. Now, Queen Elizabeth II is almost certainly the world's most famous royal, and she presides still over the largest realm insofar as she's still head of state of 16 independent territories, including but not restricted to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and a number of countries in the West Indies. So she clearly is someone who's very influential on the world stage insofar as having a cultural image. When people think of the UK, they almost immediately think of the royal family, or at least that is one of the things that immediately comes to mind. You know, if you say to a Chinese person, a Russian, an American, an Argentine, whoever it may be, think of the UK, I imagine their sort of stereotype image would be cups of tea, double-decker red buses, the Queen. These are these are outside perceptions of the UK, and of course we know that isn't the whole picture, but that is part of our national image. And for that reason, I find it very, very difficult to imagine this country as a republic. When the Queen passes, she's 91 now. She's in robust health for her age, but when she does eventually pass away, Prince Charles is obviously next in line to the throne. Now, Charles doesn't quite have the same public appeal as his son. I find it hard to believe that royal procedure will be broken. Having said that, Pope Benedict XVI broke hundreds of years of procedure by resigning. So, strange things do happen. Things do, Charles may well decide to step aside for his son to ensure the survival of monarchy. I don't know. Um, I think there tends to be two tracks of thought, and I dislike both of them when it comes to the monarchy debate. So one of them is a school of republicanism, which is very frankly vitriolic. Their views on the royal family are quite extreme, and they basically just hate them. And sometimes it gets to the point of spewing out just pure hatred, um, which to me seems a bit uncalled for. I can understand arguments against monarchy. I can understand pro-republican arguments, but I don't think it's necessary to be so personally vitriolic towards people who have done nothing to them. There are other parts of the world where monarchy is involved in deep corruption, propping up dictatorships. I'm not going to name any countries, but there's other parts of the world where there is serious problems involving the situation with monarchy. In Britain, there's legitimate arguments against it, but by and large, the British royal family, as it stands today, it is not. They're not involved in major human rights abuses. They're not dictators. It's nothing like that. So that's what I dislike about that hardcore republicanism, that they do sometimes just get outright vitriolic and say things like, "I hope they all die in a plane crash" and stuff like this. It's totally uncalled for. But, and this is a big but, there is also a sort of royalism I don't like, and it's sort of this blind, um, subservient royalism that takes that respect to a whole new level of being. I won't say a personality cult because I don't believe that exists in this country. We don't have any laws. We don't have any lèse majesté laws. It's completely okay to criticize the royal family here. Cartoonists often, make caricatures of them that aren't always flattering. So I wouldn't say it's a personality cult, but sometimes it is a bit too groveling, quite frankly. I think some royalists forget that they're human beings. They're not living gods, and sometimes I find that reverential mentality is a little bit too much, quite frankly. It's a little bit sycophantic, um, and I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that sort of royalism. I mean, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I collect royal crockery from the point of view of it being just interesting. I like history. So yeah, I collect mugs with the Queen's head on them. But it's not because I'm a hardcore royalist, it's because I just like the history aspect of it. Um, so yeah, as I see it, there are those two sort of extreme narratives, those two extreme viewpoints. I would say most people in the UK are moderate royalists, probably 65%, 65 to 70% are moderate royalists. Um, and then there's a hardcore element that's maybe 10 to 20%. But I don't like their mentality because if they could have their way, it would be illegal to criticize the royal family. In fact, I really do suspect they would want an absolute monarchy if they had the chance. That should never, ever, ever be permitted. Because if we allow a situation like that, then you get a situation where people will be jailed for lèse majesté. And it's totally something that I think would be regressive. I will always defend the right for Republicans to have their opinion because I think that is sacrosanct in the democracy. The royal family know full well they have had to adapt to the ages. They know full well they don't have the absolute power that they once had, and that's a good thing. But they do deserve a certain degree of respect because, I mean, for a woman of her age, and this also applies to the Duke of Edinburgh, people say they're lazy, they just sit on their ass all day. That's not fair. It's not fair. I mean, they get involved with a huge number of public engagements. Um, they're under enormous media scrutiny, so I don't think some of the claims against them are entirely fair. Also, wealthy, well, yeah, they are very wealthy, no question about that. But in world terms, they're actually quite far down the scale as royals go. I mean, compared to the King of Saudi Arabia or the royal family for that matter of Thailand or the Sultan of Brunei, our Queen is actually quite far down the scale. So, in terms of super wealth, yeah, they're very, very wealthy, no question about it. But that's just something that needs to be borne in mind. Um, so, yeah, personally, I'm quite happy with the situation as it is right now. When the Queen passes, there are inevitably going to be lots of questions about constitutional issues, about how long the monarchy will last. I don't think it will be a case that when the Queen dies, the monarchy is going to die, because I think Prince William in particular has the personality, has the public appeal to maintain the monarchy. But what royalists need to understand is that, firstly, and another, this is also a very important point, I reject the idea that you cannot be a Republican and a patriot. I think it's perfectly possible to love Britain, to absolutely love the United Kingdom, um, whilst also being a republic. And the only issue, of course, is the United Kingdom is based on monarchy. So without monarchy, the United Kingdom presumably wouldn't exist. And that would bring about a lot of questions about the whole Scottish thing. And so that is a point to bear in mind. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. That's how I see it right now. How do I describe myself? Probably if I had to put a label on myself, which I'm reluctant to do, but if I did, I'm probably a moderate royalist in the sense that I'm quite happy with the situation at present. I can't I can't really see this country as a republic. However, I am sympathetic to some Republican arguments. They are fundamentally right that to have a head of state who is not elected is not democratic. That's you can't argue against that. Um, but that's not our system. They would presumably argue for a presidential system. Now, presidential systems are not faultless, so that's something that itself needs to be explored. And also remember that a president has the power to call an act of war. The Queen doesn't have that power, so that's one of the main defenses for having a monarchy. In other words, a president can act without Congress's say. He could pass an executive order. Um, we don't have that situation in the UK. It has to go through Parliament. So, it's about weighing up both arguments. Anyway, thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Please keep it respectful. But I'm not going to censor if you're against the royal family. I'm absolutely, feel free to criticize.